So if you see questions, let's say that. So already they have asked questions like this. Pressure groups as business groups, pressure groups as farmers. This we are expecting questions. Again, let's say it is generally I use this color for expected questions. This. So we have been expecting a question on civil society organization as pressure groups, because they are asking sectoral pressure groups. When they ask that business groups as pressure groups or farmers as pressure groups, so we expect also civil society as pressure groups, that question. Then media, social media also, you know that today one day we expect a question on that. So that way we can consider. Plus we do not expect this type of question, comparison between this, but this is just for knowledge. How pressure groups are different means in India and other countries, that aspect. These are basic aspects you can consider related to pressure groups. So let's see the questions that how they ask. Then you have received, you have now question analysis, isn't it? Which page they have given? 29, 30. Yes. Self-help group will take after this. So you know that how they have asked. In 2015, this is how they have asked. Examine critically the recent changes in the rules governing foreign funding of non-governmental organization under the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Yes. So it was a direct question related to civil society. Yes. So since government amended that year, 2015, amendments were brought. It is simply examine. Critically examine means you have to write its pros and cons. This. So basically when critically examine is written in beginning, then you write pros and cons. But when it is written here, then you don't have to write pros and cons. That question will also come one day, we will talk. Yes. It is related to civil society, right? Then in 2021, they have asked question, civil society. Can civil society, they are using both terms. Can civil society and non-governmental organizations present an alternative model of public service delivery to benefit the common citizen? Discuss the challenges of this alternative model. No. So, can we say it offers alternative model? Can you, by existing knowledge, can you answer? How it offers alternative model?
It is direct connection. The public in the state cannot reach it. The civil society is present there.
Last mile connectivity, development and social justice. Last mile connectivity, development and social justice.
Can we say that it's entirely an alternative model rather than having it working with the government against the third sector? So it is already a part of the system. So instead of saying it's an alternative model, there should be a collaborative approach.
Brings ground level problems to the state.
No, basically we have to, let's say you have to recognize how, let's say traditional 1950s to 1990s basically. So largely let's say state dominated. Na? Yes. State dominated. their role was very marginal. Right. But now let's say कि 90s onwards, this almost we say it equal, and this. So state is shedding its responsibility. This is to know. We'll come to pressure groups. Let's finish questions on this. This part I wanted to tell also. Okay, basically let's say state. So here state was playing dominant role. State was playing dominant role, which you will know, welfare model, planning, etc. You study. It is accumulation of all knowledge. You know कि state was dominating. But by 1990s, what happens? State starts, let's say, shedding its responsibility. Shedding its to private and civil society organization. So state, and it is giving role to private sector and civil society organization. Here we are not talking private sector, which is not directly part of the syllabus, but yes, you know, it is setting, let's say PPP we have, right, developments. It is also alternative model, and CSOs are also playing role in development. We have told कि development, governance, even World Bank recognizes this. So that you can talk. The CSOs are also participating. Let's say Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. This, it is through this government is trying to implement sustainable development goals. This, we told rural development. In rural development also no various types of non-profit institutions, or I did not tell, but let's say KPAD. This KPAD is a non-profit institution which support rural technology. It is well recognized. This, so similarly, let's say कि other, let's say civil society organizations that we have told, so they are playing role. Then in research also, research, policy making field, lots of research done by civil society organizations. So that way we can say that ki how alternative, let's say, means government is more and more relying development related activities. It is trying to also give responsibility to civil society organization. Even civil society organizations are running schools. You should know that. Schools, right. अब थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा हो जाएगा, बट ये महाराष्ट्र मॉडल है, असीमा मॉडल. दिस जब एजुकेशन का टाइम आएगा वहाँ भी थोड़ा सा आई विल टेल. तो दिस इज हाउ, लेट्स से आर मिड डे मील जो होता है, मिड डे मील, तो मिड डे मील is also, let's say, a common kitchen is provided by civil society organization. Cooking, let's say that meals are cooked by them. और पता ही है आपको वो सारा क्या नाम है उसका, वो कर्नाटक वाला वो इस्कॉन, राइट, क्या नाम है उस, it provides meal to 11 million students. Do you know that? पत्र क्या है वो, ऐसे ही नाम है उसका, क्या पॉपुलर नेम है. Yes, Akshaya Patra. मतलब थोड़ा सा और आपको ऐड करना पड़ेगा क्वेश्चन के हिसाब से कस्टमाइज करना पड़ेगा, isn't it? Question demands a bit customized answer. राइट, कस्टमाइज आंसर मीन्स जैसे आपको रेस्टोरेंट में जाते हैं तो रेगुलर मेन्यू होता है, isn't it? तो उन्होंने करी बना के रखा है, आप मांगोगे पनीर करी उस स्पाइसी, नो ज़्यादा स्पाइसी चाहिए, तो वो कस्टमाइज करते हैं उसी के हिसाब से। उसी तरह से आंसर को भी कस्टमाइज करना पड़ता है थोड़ा बहुत तो उस तरीके से मोल्ड करना पड़ेगा। तो यू हैव टू राइट, so you have to give some more examples. More examples means हम लोगों ने ये सब नहीं दिया था, इसलिए नहीं दिया था कि बहुत सारे एग्जाम्पल्स हो रहे थे, लेकिन अब शॉर्टेज ऑफ एग्जाम्पल लग रहा है। तो when we write answers we need suitable examples, that you should know. That's why your next level of preparation will be answer, let's say seeing answers, preparing answers, right? And then your quality will improve. So basically it is called alternatives. We should agree that this, because question is saying discuss the challenges, so it is not trying to say ki we say can question it, right? We can say that ki although civil society organization is not a substitute to state, but it play a complement role. However, it is also an alternative model. Alternative model that the government is trying to give more and more responsibility to civil society organizations so that they can also complement the role of the state in process of development, which enhances the ability of the state to deliver and realize aspirations of people. So it can be considered as an alternative model. This, and then you have to discuss challenges, the challenges that we have told, what challenges they face, governance challenge they face, fund problems they face, regulatory challenges they face. So that is what we have to write. So this way it can be answered. Right?
So what is that? Research and development?
This one.
So rural development?
Rural development, KPART is one good civil society organization. Yes. Which works at rural level.
So challenges will be the same, like governance.
This is how. KPART is Council for Advancement of People Action and Rural Technology. It's let's say that expansion is Council for Advancement of People's Action and Rural Technology. Right. This. So basically 2 questions they have asked on civil society as per this counting. Maybe here and there, let's say, let's take the pressure groups. So they have asked 5 questions. Yes.
So there was a question in 2015, page 29.
Page 29. Yes.
Third question.
Yes, it means 3 questions they have asked. This, how can the role of NGOs be strengthened in India for development works related to protection of environment? This, discuss throwing light on the major constraints. This, so basically you have to write, see how they ask diversified questions. This, although I try to include in environment a bit in that itself instead of going and talking separately. But they ask very specialized questions, let's say. The role of civil society in the field of environment. So, that's why now we expect question in the field of governance. It is time development they have asked, environment they have asked, alternative model also they have asked. Next question we expect in terms of governance. Governance, accountability, transparency, ki how they promote this. So first you will write in this case, first you will write about civil society organizations role. Then you have to relate in the field of environment, how they play a role in the field of environment. We can give some example. Chipko movement. This. Yes. Narmada Bachao Andolan. Center for Science and Environment, TERI. This. This is the Energy and Resource Institute, which works in the field of environment ecology. You know, Center for Science and Environment, it highlighted pesticides residue in soft drinks. This led by Sunita Narayan. This Narmada Bachao Andolan, let's. So this we can talk. Plus, you can highlight the areas, let's say that you can highlight areas related to now. This is how again the nature of examples will change. Right? This like say Arauli. Arauli area. Nyamgiri Hills. Lavasa. This urban areas, Janagra, it works in urban areas. They all have been highlighted by non-governmental organizations. This. It is their interventions which resulted into court intervention. Then court intervention result. This. The projects were cancelled. This. Like in Nyamgiri and project related to Vedant. So now the examples will be more customized to environment related works, right? Then the question is saying that how we can, let's say, strengthen, how the role of NGO can be strengthened in India for development work related to protection of environment. So it can be strengthened by, let's say that first regulation. We need to, let's say, create a new legal structure, means legal framework. Yes? Yes. No, not regulatory institution. Rather, we can have a new law for a legal new, so that to address their governance challenge. Second is that adequate funding. The government should provide adequate fundings because to work in the field of environment, you need more research analysis. This. And third is constructive role. Right. Rather than blocking development, they should play more constructive role. Yes. As of now, it is like blocking development, hostaging development, being more antithetical to development. But they should project their role as, let's say that balancing act between development and environment. This, they should have more constructive role. So that can be written. So this way we can write, give suggestions.
Balancing act between development and
Yes,
balancing act between development
development and environment. Right. And greater transparency in their functioning. Right. Means see, ecology and environment should not override the concerns of development. Both are important. We need to protect the environment, but at the same time, development is also important. So they should adopt a more collaborative role rather than conflictual role. Their role should be more collaborative rather than conflictual.
So even like many countries are like dependent on fossil fuels, so like they are not shifting to alternative sources of employment. So that is why even transitioning to sustainable sources of energy would be difficult. Like in country like India also, it will not be possible to.
It is not possible as of now. It is not
Yeah.
feasible right now.
Feasible.
To like
Like
suddenly
in countries
transform.
like Europe and USA, they
It's
have
like-
alternative, like they can shift to their energy balance.
Yes, means this is how, let's say, no, there cannot be drastic shifting from one form to another form. And even if, let's say, a renewable source of energy cannot be as reliable, the reliability factor, if you say, the reliability factor, it can supplement. We should not propagate the idea of supplanting. Rather, this is how they should play a more constructive role. Right. When they were, let's say, protesting against nuclear power plants, so they should not protest against nuclear power plants. Rather, they should, let's say, work for promoting renewable energy and reducing the risk of radiation. न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी तो फ्रांस में भी है, न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी तो जापान में भी है, right? And we, since we have a thorium reserve, so that's why we were going for nuclear. So their attitude becomes more conflictual. As we told yesterday, they work more for sectoral view. They have more localistic view. They do not carry holistic view. Holistic view means they should be also problem solving oriented, rather than only raising the problem. So that is how they need to adopt a more collaborative approach. So this way we can talk. So that is how let's take. So if you see pressure group, politics is sometimes seen as an informal face of politics. With regard to the above, assess the structure and functioning of pressure groups in India. So basically, first part is a difficult part. The second part is simple part. Right. Which we'll talk when we'll take what it is. Right. Same Indian governance system. See the term they use, governance. In the Indian governance system, the role of non-state actors, now that term also they have used.
That
Right.
means it will broaden the scope, sir.
The role of non-state actors has been only marginal. Critically examine this statement.
first tell we'll reject the statement in the end. If it is not, they have.
So ये non-state actors will also include CSOs and all.
Yes, तो CSO के लिए ही है.
RTI and etc. How
नहीं,
the
मतलब specific pressure group के लिए नहीं है ना ये.
No, specific pressure groups के लिए नहीं है. Yes, you are right. It is not a specific pressure groups. It is for civil society organization, pressure groups, interest groups, non-profit institutions, including business sector. Non-state actors include civil society organizations and business sector also. But question is not directed towards business sector as given the nature of the paper second. So we'll talk more on non-profit institutions, civil society, pressure groups and interest groups. That. Anyhow, how do pressure groups influence Indian political process? Do you agree with the view that informal pressure groups have emerged as powerful than formal pressure groups in recent years? Yes. So, what are the methods used by farmers? This is how farmers, right, to influence policy makers in India, and how effective are these methods? Then pressure groups play a vital role in influencing public policy making in India. Explain how the business associations contribute to public policies. That is how once they ask farmer, then they ask business, then it is expected that they may ask civil society. Yes. So that is what we can say this. So So let's think about pressure groups. So in general, this is how we can know about pressure groups. So first, that all those groups which influence policy of the government, they can be considered pressure groups. This. So main aim is influencing government, influencing decision of the government, influencing policy of the government. This is how its main aim. Now, when they influence, so they do not want to share power. Their aim is not to share power with government. Rather, their aim is to influence policy of the government or decision. Hence, they will not have power sharing with the government. They are not part of the power structure. Since they are not part of the power structure, that's why political parties are not considered pressure groups. This is to know. Because political parties share power. They become part of power structure. So political parties are not considered pressure groups this way. Now, although there are different technical, but technicality we do not want to introduce at this stage. We want to tell in general way. The pressure groups can be of two types. Although technically there are four types. Yes. But here we say two types. One ki unka main role ही यही है. They have created themselves with an intention to influence policy of government. This. So their core role you can say, main role. They have created themselves so that they can influence policy of government. Like all research, policy research institutions, all policy research institutions you can consider. So let's see how Center for Policy Research or ORF or FICCI or Oxfam you can consider, or TERI that we wrote this. So their main role will be related to this. This. Their main role is to do research and influence government. This. So this way we can consider this is how they will form. But occasionally there are some, let's say that groups who are not meant for influencing policy of the government. But due to some developments, some situations, they may also influence policy of the government. This. Like say students may protest. When students may protest, students union etc. or any such university related activity may result into government bringing change in policy. You know that ragging related policy has been changed. The ragging related committee was constituted, policy has been introduced. So somehow, although students union role is not to influence policy of government, their role is to protect and promote the interest of students. Similarly, labor unions, they are not mainly created for influencing policy. Labor unions are created for protecting their own interest. So, broadly we can have that kind of, let's say, categorization, which one occasionally they influence policy and they regularly, let's say, their main role is to influence policy of the government. That's why we have written civil society organization. Right. Civil society. In that way, occasionally media can also work, social media can also work. Anyone can work occasionally as influencer. That we can consider as pressure group. Then the question is, why do we need pressure groups? Means need for pressure groups. Simple, let's say that government and people. So government may not be alone able to Government alone may not be able to understand the aspirations of people and fulfill the aspirations of people. Many a time government can be also complacent. Many a time government may lack, let's say, policy inputs. Therefore, pressure groups work as, let's say that, intermediaries between government and citizen to influence policy of the government and promote and protect interest of a particular section or general section of society. This. So their role becomes important in any, let's say, called liberal democratic system. Means pressure groups will be having more and more presence again when there is democracy. In democratic states, you have pressure groups. Yes. So presence of pressure group is also manifestation of a democratic environment. And this is how it is considered as, again, let's say, an important part of any democracy. Its origin is modern USA. So pressure groups originates from US, where there is a, let's say that, very effective practice that pressure groups in US are considered fourth branch of the government. Because pressure groups in US are very active. This. Even there is a lobby system in US. This. And those pressure groups are highly professional pressure groups. As against our country where we have more religious type of pressure groups. This religious means religion, caste and region dominates in our country as pressure groups, as against Western countries where you have more professional associations. This. So you can take any example, let's say that let's say ORF is doing research. Let's say federal polity. When we'll take federal polity, the ORF has papers on federal polity. And then it does research on federal polity. So government may not itself do research on federal polity. So when it does research on federal polity, it can bring some new insights. And when it will bring new insights related to federal polity, that can give idea to the government to bring reforms. Same thing related to, let's say, smart city mission, you can say. The smart city mission related studies government may not carry. A private, let's say, a non-profit institution may do research on working of smart cities, sustainable development, this environment development conflict, the various types of, let's say that, policy inputs they can provide. That many a time pressure groups resort to dharna, strike, protest, although they also work the way civil society organization works. Their methods of working is also more or less same the way civil society organization, advocacy, awareness, participation. This you can say this participation, the dharna, strike, the way we were talking about civil society organization. Same thing also they can do. Many a time pressure groups can also work violently also. So the, let's say, the difference between civil society and pressure group is civil society generally do not become violent, but pressure groups can also become violent. That is called anomic pressure group. Like say there are some extremist organization. one recently, क्या नाम है हरियाणा Punjab, that one individual, right, Amritpal Singh, right. Amritpal Singh, and they have one slogan something like, no, एक particular एक slogan है उनका कुछ, right. So basically many a time you know that कि Bhagat Singh, why they, let's say that कि threw bomb, right, so that the deaf means those, let's say that, so those who were deaf they can hear. They wanted to make deaf people hear. This, that was their intention. So many a time pressure groups can take, let's say, such kind of, let's say, violent, let's say, actions, and so that they can make the government listen to them. Anyhow, so what we are trying to say is that pressure groups are basically, they articulate the interest of people. State may not itself be able to articulate the interest of different sections of people as effectively as some pressure groups can, and that is how, let's say, pressure groups are needed. Then many a time, let's say, policy evaluation, let's say that policy evaluation, when policy is implemented, the government may not do policy evaluation, but pressure groups, through their, let's say, research and other such studies, they can have policy evaluation and they can give critical picture of any such policy implementation or decision of the government. So that can also become basis to improve quality of policy making. Means pressure groups presence, it, let's say that helps in effective articulation of aspirations of citizen, and it helps in improving decisions of the government, including, let's say that policy making, and overall, let's say, it helps in, let's say, democratic functioning of the government. This, that is how we need pressure groups. Now, in case of, let's say, take US, in our country, US has a presidential system. That's why pressure groups will influence there directly Congress. Right. They influence directly Congress, means lawmakers. In our country, we have a parliamentary democracy. The pressure groups basically influence government and bureaucracy. This, that is the difference. And there is also paid lobby. Pressure groups in Western countries, they influence also foreign policy. But in our country, pressure groups are not concerned about foreign policy. They are more concerned about domestic policy. And then we'll tell you about different sections of pressure groups at sectors. This is how we'll talk. Sectorally, when we'll talk about, let's say, business sector, civil society organization, farmers, so we'll take one by one, we'll talk like this. But this is how the background we can consider of pressure groups, which they try to articulate the interest of people so that the government is able to realize aspirations of people, and there is a democratic working of the government. This is what we have to write. So let's write on this. Pressure groups form part of civil society organizations. Civil society organizations or non-profit institutions. Non-profit institutions which influence policy of the government. Policy of the government. They work as intermediary between government and citizens. And help in effective articulation of aspirations of people. Hence, pressure groups play a vital role in the democratic functioning of a polity. Their presence promote democratic discourse. Democratic discourse in terms of debate, discussion, mobilization of public opinion, on major public issues. Change paragraph. It has its origin in US, which introduce a democratic system of governance, wherein pressure groups have emerged as the fourth organ of the state. Change paragraph. Definition of pressure groups. In general, a pressure group is an association. In general, a pressure group is an association of people who have common interests and try to achieve their interests by influencing the government. Henry Turner defines pressure groups as non-partisan organizations which attempt to influence public policy, and therefore the core characteristics of pressure groups is related to influencing public policy. Types of pressure groups. In formal sense, there are four types of pressure groups. Associational, non-associational, professional, and anomic. Associational means pressure groups are created, organized and structured, and people can be allowed to associate people can be allowed to associate with such organizations like FICCI, ORF, Center for Policy Research, MKSS, etc. Next, non-associational. They are related to those types of organizations. Which membership is restricted. On the grounds of religion, caste, race, and class. Like all religious organizations, including RSS, all caste associations, tribal associations, etc. Next, professional. They are related to professional, I guess it is also institutional. They are related to those organizations in which there are creation of groups and associations. Within organization. Like bureaucracy is an institution. Within that, there are associations like IAS association. Parliament is an institution. It has parliamentary forums. Next, enomic. They are violent type of pressure groups. That is, they try to influence government. Through extreme events, which may include protest, violence, like even extremist organizations become part of enomic pressure groups. Like NSCN, ULFA, etc. NSCN and ULFA. ULFA. बट इतना ज़्यादा टेक्निकल नहीं होना है, पॉलिटिकल साइंस नहीं है.
सर यहाँ पे हम डिमार्केट बिटवीन इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप्स एंड
Yes,
प्रेशर
yes.
ग्रुप्स. यहाँ पे हम डिमार्केट नहीं कर रहे इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप और प्रेशर ग्रुप्स को. इट इज दिस,
Yes, we are not.
देयर इज नो लाइन यहाँ पे.
No, no, we are not. In a way, let's say कि we are not trying to differentiate. इसलिए कि इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप्स भी ऐसे ही डिफाइन किया जाता है.
ओके, सो देयर अगर कुछ भी मेंशन है प्रेशर ग्रुप्स के बारे में तो इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप्स आर ऑटोमेटिकली इंक्लूडेड इन.
No, it is not like say since it is not part of the syllabus to talk on interest groups, so then we talk pressure groups in which there can be let's say also incorporation of interest groups. Yes, all those interest groups which influence policy, they become pressure groups. But there is difference. There is difference. I generally tell it. I think I forgot, right? I will tell it somewhere. Process of working types. This. Let's towards end we can talk like this. Yes.
In the CSO part we wrote the difference.
But वो बहुत ही short.
इससे समझ नहीं आया.
सर इसमें जो क्वेश्चन पूछा था इनफॉर्मल एंड फॉर्मल प्रेशर ग्रुप्स.
We'll come to that. इनफॉर्मल वो है ना जो ऑकेजनली आ जाते हैं. जैसे CA प्रोटेस्ट, राइट. CA प्रोटेस्ट एंड हिजाब बैन प्रोटेस्ट, इस तरीके से इंडिया अगेंस्ट करप्शन, राइट. तो स्पॉन्टेनिटी लेट्स से कि देर आर प्रेशर ग्रुप्स और देर आर ग्रुप्स विच हैव स्पॉन्टेनियसली emerged. This in that context it was. Although we'll deal after finishing this pressure group. This, but let's try that. General categorization. General categorization. General categorization. Pressure groups can also be categorized. Pressure groups can also be categorized as first business groups, next farmers associations, next labor associations, civil society organizations / NGOs, next media and social media. Media and social media. Next, non-profit research institutions. Non-profit research institutions. That is, they are the major types of pressure groups which have presence in any democratic polity, including India. Next, methods of working of pressure groups. they adopt more or less they adopt more or less similar strategies adopted by civil society organizations like first appeals and petitions petitions. Next, demonstrations and protests. Next, dharna and strike. Next, lobbying. Next, resorting to violence. Yes. Next, business groups as pressure groups. First point. Now we'll deal sectoral. Business groups as pressure groups. There are business groups like FICCI, Confederation of Indian Industry.
What is the term? What is the term? FICCI?
This FICCI, Confederation of Indian Industry. Right. It is like this, I guess, double S. ASOCHAM. Associated Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Associated Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Right. In addition to that, there are various other such associations. Of industries, entrepreneurs, which try to promote common interest of business sector. Among them, the most popular is FICCI, which works as a research organization and through its publications influences policy of the government. Like BT cotton policy. BT cotton policy. BT cotton policy. Next. Business lobby is strong. Business lobby is strong because of first its resourcefulness. Next, market model adopted since 1991. Next, ease of doing business. Next, articulative. Therefore, most of the government policies related to trade, commerce, investment, contracts, PPPs, mining in tribal dominated areas, etc., have been influenced by corporate lobby. Pros and cons. Pros side, it promotes business approach. Next, competitiveness in economy. Next, innovation. Next, growth and development. Cons side. Crony capitalism. Right. Development over loss of natural resources. Next, compromise of social justice and sustainability. Next, nexus and corruption. Change paragraph. That is, the common good of the society suffers. According to EPW, ऐसे ही नाम होता है, इकोनॉमिक एंड पॉलिटिकल वीकली. according to EPW report, resource concentration in India has increased. Resource concentration in India has increased. Concentration in India has increased in post-liberalization era. Post-liberalization era. Liberalization era. Therefore, corporate lobby undermines common good of society. Common good of society. Like they have tax holidays. They have tax holidays and various types of concessions. But they dislike idea of subsidies to farmers. They dislike idea of subsidies to farmers. However, in recent times, they have been also promoting CSR activities. CSR activities. So that's all. So basically, let's say कि corporate lobby, you know that कि फिक्की का एक रिपोर्ट है जो बीटी कॉटन को जस्टिफाई किया था. तो बेसिकली दे ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड क्यों पावरफुल है, देन फार्मर्स एसोसिएशन पावरफुल क्यों नहीं है. इसलिए कि दे आर रिसोर्सफुल. सबसे ज़्यादा रिच, लेट्स से कि दे डोंट हैव प्रॉब्लम ऑफ मनी. They are resourceful, they are educated people, they are knowledgeable people, and they are in the field of business. And you know that business and politics lobby is very strong. This, which we teach somewhere else, let's say. M3, you know that, money, muscle and media. So politics और कॉर्पोरेट लॉबिंग बहुत ही स्ट्रांग है. कॉर्पोरेट गिव्स फंड टू पॉलिटिक्स एंड पॉलिटिक्स लेट्स से दैट की गिव्स बिजनेस टू कॉर्पोरेट. 92% funds of the ruling party come from corporate sector. Yes, which is highest. 92% funds come of the ruling party from corporate. So you know that it will give favor to corporate. Already आपको पता ही है कहाँ पे favor जा रहा है. This. So this way, this is how it happens. The positive side is that it is good. Corporate lobby is needed. They influence policy of the government. And there can be positive influence also. That's why our, let's say, business related policy has improved. We have improved our regulation, business environment, competitiveness, innovations, resourcefulness, blah blah, all these things we can talk. But at the same time, yes.
No, sir. Yeah, Oxfam report I have read once regarding this resource concentration.
नहीं, वो अलग रिपोर्ट है, ये वाला अलग है.
No, it is about resource concentration only in business sector.
Yes, yes. बट जो हमने रेफर किया है वो अलग है, उसका कॉन्टेक्स्ट अलग है.
अच्छा, दोनों अलग कॉन्टेक्स्ट में है.
कॉन्टेक्स्ट ये है कि अभी एक एनालिसिस आया था, वो जो ग्रुप होता है ना आपका, उस पर जो डेली हिंदू वाला पोस्ट किया जाता है, राइट. तो उसमें एक आर्टिकल होगा, 2-3 दिन पहले आया होगा. आई रेड दैट आर्टिकल. नो नो, इट इज़ नॉट पोस्टेड. हिंदू वाला आपको पोस्ट किया जाता है. आई गेट सम अदर, राइट. राइट. सो basically another person, Mobin, so he sends other articles to me. हिंदू ही आपके लिए काफ़ी है, ठीक है. बट मुझे आता है डेली सारे जितने भी वेबसाइट्स हैं और सोर्सेज हैं, उस पे आज क्या रेलेवेंट आर्टिकल था वो मेरे पास आता है। Right. तो उसमें एक आर्टिकल था ऐसा, Right. जिसमें कि एनालिसिस किया गया है इंडिपेंडेंस से अभी तक रिसोर्स कंसंट्रेशन के बारे में। तो रिसोर्स कंसंट्रेशन वाज लेस ड्यूरिंग 1980s, बट इट इंक्रीज इन लिबरलाइजेशन एरा। तो जस्ट आई हैव रेफर्ड इट, डिटेल हमने नहीं मेंशन किया है, डिटेल मैं अभी बता दूंगा। तो जस्ट टू से दैट कि कंसंट्रेशन हैज इंक्रीज्ड। ऑक्सफैम तो ऑब्वियसली शो करता है ना, टॉप 10% ओन्स 70 to 80% ऑफ रिसोर्सेस।
1% population owns 41% nation wealth.
Yes, that is also it can be told. So 1% of, let's say that 1% people own
41% of nation wealth, while 50% own 3% of its wealth.
yes 50%
Own 3% of its wealth.
yes. So this is how it is. That can also be written, right? But so basically you have to show okay, how there is concentration, wealth concentration, but it is not showing comparative picture. But that article gives a comparative picture कि how it has increased or it has decreased. This, so in that context. So it has both pros and cons. This is how you should know that. Cons also is that कि lobby result into know that कि the undue influence, crony capitalism, you know, nexus, corruption, you know, all these things you can yourself write. Already these are very generic things which you know about them. The only thing is that you need to know some groups, associations, and how they influence policy. So they do their research, they influence, let's say that how they do that. So when budget is formulated, this some occasions, let's say that how there are some occasions. So when budget is formulated, before formulation of budget, the finance minister meets with corporate leaders. This is one. Prime Minister also at times meet with corporate leaders time to time. This you can consider. This is one traditional practice. नया practice आ गया है investment conference. The investment conference held by different states. You may hear time to time how they hold the conference, etc. like this. So that way you can consider just to refer. Like, then let's take this farmers as pressures. That's it. Farmers become another important. Farmers are another important pressure groups in India, as agriculture plays very important role not only in life of people but also in electoral politics. But also in electoral politics. But also in electoral politics. Politics. There are farmers associations. which in normal times, which in normal times work as interest groups. Interest groups, and they protect the interest of farmers. They protect the interest of farmers. However, they time to time influence policies related to agriculture of government, policy related to agriculture of government. There are more than 500 farmers associations in India. There are more than 500 farmers associations in India. Right. Some important farmer associations are it's Indian Congress Trade Union, भारतीय मजदूर संघ, भारतीय संयुक्त मोर्चा, let's change paragraph. Some farmers associations, especially led by Mahendra Singh Tikat, in Uttar Pradesh, played important role related to farmers in Western Uttar Pradesh. He marched to Delhi to force government to change its policy decisions. Recently, Sanjukt Morcha, led by क्या नाम है टिकैट राकेश led by Rakesh Tikat, recently protested against the three farm bills, and they forced government to withdraw the bills. withdraw the bills. As of now, there is also protest going on by farmers. As of now, there is also protest going on by farmers. By farmers. And farmers have also played as lobby groups. Farmers have also played as lobby groups, especially from Punjab. Especially from Punjab, for favorable policy by the government. Favorable policy by the government. Especially related to minimum support price. Especially related to minimum support price. Minimum support price. Pros and cons. Pros and cons. Pros side, since still over 49% population depend on agriculture, over 49% people depend on agriculture. Depend on agriculture. Right. It is important to formulate pro-farmers policy. Pro-farmers policy. Next, agriculture provides livelihood security to people. Livelihood security to people. Hence, protection of farmers' interest is important. Protection of farmers' interest is important. Farmers associations have forced government for providing subsidies and support the way corporate sector is provided. Cons. Unlike corporate lobby, farmers lobby is divided on ideological lines. Left, right, and centrist. Next, it is not as articulative. As industry lobby. Next, it also lacks resourcefulness. To carry out adequate research educate, research, and influence government policies. Influence government policies. It also lacks progressive attitude. It also lacks progressive attitude. That is, its perspective is local, regional, rather than national, like Punjab farmers' dominance. Dominance. This change paragraph, since they have not been very articulative, and they lack consensus. They are not very effective lobby. They are not very effective lobby for policy change, although they remain important for electoral politics. Change paragraph. Since they are ideologically divided, they lack independence in their perspective, as their actions are guided by political parties. Rather than interest of farmers in particular, and people in general. Therefore, even if they use methods, first appeal, next petitioning, next consultation, participation, next protest, dharna, strikes, still their grievances have not been effectively addressed. Yes. Try to understand. देखो क्या है ना कि दे आर डिवाइडेड. जैसे राकेश टिकैत नो, पता है कि अंदर से क्या क्या हुआ था, सब लोगों को पता होगा, राइट. सो एक ही वाज सो वोकल, देन उसके बाद क्या हुआ एक राइट. आइडियोलॉजिकल लाइन्स, तो पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज, मजदूर किसान संगठन, भारतीय मजदूर किसान संघ, कांग्रेस का अलग अपना ट्रेड यूनियन है, एंड बीजेपी का अलग ट्रेड यूनियन है, लेफ्ट का अलग ट्रेड यूनियन है. सो ट्रेड यूनियंस मीन्स फार्मर्स एसोसिएशंस आर एज पर पार्टी लाइन. सो सपोज दैट कि कांग्रेस led farmer association has called for protest. The others will not join. Yes, so similarly you should know that when this Rakesh Tikat and the protest was going on, there was a counter protest by the farmer association supported by the ruling party. ये और बात है कि उनको वो लेट्स से कि सपोर्ट नहीं मिला उनको, दे वर नॉट एबल टू गैदर ह्यूज क्राउड. इसलिए क्राउड आप मैनेज नहीं कर सकते हैं ना. ग्रीवेंस है तो क्राउड आएगा, ग्रीवेंस नहीं है तो क्राउड नहीं आएगा. सो basically they told that कि we don't have problem with farmers, farm bills are progressive. तो उन्होंने अपना एक अलग मंच बनाया कहीं, वहाँ पे उन्होंने अप्रिशिएट किया फार्म बिल्स को, this but it is less reported. So when they are ideologically divided, they will not work as force. this दूसरा है कि आर्टिकुलेटिव नहीं है, रिसोर्सफुल नहीं है, ये रिसर्च नहीं. देखो आज के डेट में आपको सब कुछ होना चाहिए आपके पास. सिर्फ प्रोटेस्ट करके, धरना स्ट्राइक करके आप नहीं कर सकते हैं. जब टीवी पे आपको डिबेट के लिए बुलाया जाता है तो आपको उसका जवाब देना पड़ेगा, और विथ मोर इन्फॉर्मेशन, नॉलेज. अब अपने नॉलेज से इन्फ्लुएंस करो लोगों को. जो गवर्नमेंट फैक्ट्स दे रही है, गवर्नमेंट का रिप्रेजेंटेटिव जो बोल रहा है, उसके काउंटर में आप बोलो. दिस सो दे नीड, लेट्स से दैट कि एजुकेटेड पीपल, they need intellectuals, they need educated people, they need resourcefulness, they need publications. उनके पास publications होना चाहिए, reports होना चाहिए, ताकि they can support, let's say that, their policy. That is called evidence based policy, which we'll talk when we'll write towards end. कि तो दो more evidence based, तो लोग influence होंगे आपसे. FICCI can do research, and corporate lobby, it is not ideologically divided. You can see that all corporate leaders come and meet together. This Narayan Murthy touching the feet of Ratan Tata. So this is like they may be doing different business, they may be competitive, but they have respect for each other. They share the table together, let's say that. They share it, they sit across table, they talk. But do you have that kind of farmers associations of different ideology? So we don't have that kind of things. No? So they will not have consensus. अभी चल रहा है protest, आपको पता होना चाहिए. अभी इधर दिल्ली के NCR एरिया में फार्मर्स का प्रोटेस्ट चल रहा है. यस, और स्ट्राइक किया है उन लोगों ने नोएडा वगैरह एरिया में, लाइक दिस फार्मर्स प्रोटेस्ट. सेम वही प्रोटेस्ट जो पहले हुआ था. एट सर्टेन पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम यू विल फाइंड दैट कि देयर फार्मर्स आर प्रोटेस्टिंग, बट फार्मर्स प्रोटेस्ट होता है, लाठीचार्ज होता है, बहुत सारी चीज़ें होती हैं. एट द एंड ऑफ द डे नथिंग हैपन्स. These are recent, let's say that, footage. बहुत सारे like you'll find this how they are protesting. This, तो ये अभी का protest है. This protest is just going on. Yes. रिसेंट, जस्ट बहुत ही लेटेस्ट रिपोर्ट है. Right. Right. This protest, let's say, this is how I'll find this. That certain point of time you find the protest, let's say, they're protesting here and there. But the protests do not necessarily result into why? They are not very strong. Yes. That is how, let's say, that they can work a strong. Farmers protest 2.0 has been postponed till, this is how someone is writing also. So it is called 2.0, farmers protest 2.0. Right, has been postponed till 13 Feb. Anyhow, let's try this further. Way forward means it is for farmers. Farmers, they should become more articulative by investing in research and studies, to influence policy of government. Next, they should participate in democratic discourse. Through media, social media, newspaper, including writing articles to influence people. Next, they should adopt progressive approach. In terms of corporatization, mechanization, and innovations in the field of agriculture, organization. Next, there should be more professional farmers associations. Rather than party line based farmers association. Since farmers are not considered very strong lobby, they resort to extreme events like protests, strikes, gherao, GHERAO, right, which often result into tension with administration and lathi charge. But grievances are not addressed. Hence, they need to change their strategies. as pressure groups. Pressure groups. That is what we can tell.
Evidence-based.
Right. Yes, you can add this. They need to change the strategy as pressure groups and should have evidence-based approach. Evidence-based approach in influencing policy of the government. Policy of the government. So that we can consider it. Next, civil society organization and pressure groups. Civil society organizations as pressure group. Organizations as pressure group. Civil society organizations. Civil society organizations. Role has been recognized. Role has been recognized in the era of globalization and governance since 1990s. 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 They have become an important stakeholder. They have become an important stakeholder. Stakeholder. Representing an alternative development model. Representing an alternative development model. Hence, their style of working has also changed. Their style of working has also changed. Changed. That there is activism by civil society organizations. Activism by civil society organizations, often resorting to first protests and demonstrations. Protests and demonstrations. Petitions in courts. Petitions in courts, in bracket, PIL. Next, dharna and strike. Dharna and strikes. Strikes. Change paragraph. Some recent popular protests. Some recent popular protests all across the world. All across the world, like first Occupy Wall Street movement. Occupy Wall Street movement. Occupy Wall Street movement in bracket US. Yellow Vest protest in France. France. Arab Spring. Arab Spring. Next, Nirbhaya protest. Nirbhaya protest. Nirbhaya protest in bracket. Marking a turning point. Marking a turning point in role of civil society. Civil society. CA NRC protest, farmers protests, protest, India against corruption protest. India against corruption protest. That civil society organizations have become assertive in protecting freedom and liberty of people. Protecting freedom and liberty of people and promoting reforms in policies. Reforms in policies. Next, pros and cons. Pros and cons. Pros side. Increase in democratic discourse. Increase in level of democratic discourse. Democratic discourse. Next, formation of public opinion. Formation of public opinion. Next, improvement in quality of policy. Improvement in quality of policy programs. Exposure of corruption and misuse of powers. Next, improving government transparency and accountability. Improving government transparency and accountability. Accountability. Cons side you can write. Becoming repulsive and reactionary. Repulsive and reactionary in approach. Short-term perspective. Short-term perspective. It's vested interest. It's getting carried away. Due to vested interest. Affecting stability and order in society. Although their activism has helped in breaking complacency culture and making government more citizen-centric. But at the same time, they have created troubles in terms of disturbing stability and order. stability and order. In today's context, when there is collaborative approach, in today's context, when there is collaborative approach, there cannot be a clear demarcation of line. There cannot be a clear demarcation of line between civil society organizations and pressure groups. Between civil society organizations and pressure groups. Like in recent times, the policies any recent can we talk to this? So it is Nirbhaya, then that it resulted into those changes. Then we can say this called India Against Corruption, Jan Lokpal Bill, Lokpal Act that we brought. In fact, India Against Corruption itself drafted Jan Lokpal Bill. This civil society organization drafted a bill. Farmers' protest, already you know that. Then vested interests on civil society, that is how amendments in Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, plus this is National Council for Social Work Education, this they want to create, to regulate the social work by civil society organizations. Social work education. This. This. That's it. However, civil society organizations should play more constructive, assertive, rather than repulsive role repulsive and reactionary role as pressure groups. Next, media and social media. I will tell in shortest manner. Media through investigative journalism. Investigative journalism, news reports, articles generate democratic discourse and helps in formulation of public opinion, which builds pressure on government for improving its policy. Like first, debate related to regulation of artificial intelligence. Next, flaws in Indian Penal Code, CRPC, and Indian Evidence Act. Next, social media has become a new instrument. Instrument of pressure group, as it has its reach far and wide, from global to local, or local to global. Hence, discourse on social media also influence policy of government. Like net neutrality policy of government. Net neutrality. Social media intermediaries guidelines. (2021), etc. Pros and cons, yourself you write. Right. It is emerging, we don't expect. Let's first they ask social society, but it is yes. So that way we can say that different segments have, right, this pressure groups, etc. Let's write weaknesses. Weaknesses of pressure groups. First, unlike Western countries, India has more dominance of caste, religious and community-based pressure groups. Community-based pressure groups. Next, fragmentation. Next point is fragmentation. Fragmentation. That is, pressure groups are divided on ideological lines. Ideological lines. Next, limited resources. Limited resources. That they do not have adequate resource. They do not have adequate resource to pursue their activities and influence policy of government. Pursue their activities and influence policy of government. Next, political parties led pressure groups. Political parties led pressure groups, which make them less independent in their perspective. Next, polarization and divisive politics. Polarization and divisive politics. Divisive politics. Pressure groups also resort to parochial, communal, and prejudiced activities, and they force government to adopt policies in their favor. Yes. So you know that what happens. अभी तो आ रहा है ना Valentine's Day, isn't it? तो उनका ऑलरेडी एजेंडा रेडी होगा. किस दिन आता है? 14th फेब में ही आता है. ठीक, चल रहा है. आज चॉकलेट डे है. उनका तो ब्लैक डे है. पता नहीं इनको क्या प्रॉब्लम है. So मतलब वो तो they barge into the let's say that is showrooms and restaurants. Yes. They beat people also. Moral policing. ये भी होता है कि लोग कुछ प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट कर रहे हैं, राइट. दिस वेस्टर्न कल्चर नहीं चाहिए तो फोन मत लो, जो फोन है तुम्हारे हाथ में. दिस फोन भी तो स्मार्टफोन एप्पल का ही है ना. दिस इज हाउ इट इज. मैं बोलता हूँ कि बैम्बू वाला फोन बना लो अपना. दिस आपका ना कल्चर का. नहीं, वो भी हो सकता है इम्पोर्टेड होगा. पता चला पिजन्स भी कहीं से आए थे. तो दिस इज हाउ लेट्स से कि दे विल मींस कम्युनल. एग्जांपल्स नहीं दे सकते हैं बट ऐसे ही लेट्स से कि इट इज लेट्स लाइक से कि एंटी कन्वर्जन लॉ. एंटी कन्वर्जन लॉ इज आल्सो बेस्ड ऑन दैट कि you want to fulfill, let's say some sections of society. Same thing is related to, this is called ban on meat ban, let's say that. पहले मीट बैन इतना नहीं होता था, yes, but अब मीट बैन हमेशा होने लगा है.
Food has been politicized.
Yes.
Food has been politicized.
Yes, food, yes, the food has been politicized. उसके बाद यूपी में वो क्या चल रहा था, हलाल. This, so this way, then UP government brought one notification, एक notification आया था यूपी गवर्नमेंट का, right, this, हाँ, means कि halal will not be written, this. So this way you will find this कि means these things can be done in a way the way other policies are made ना. अगर आपको किसी चीज़ को बैन करना है, किसी चीज़ को, तो आप बिना हल्ला मचाए कर सकते हो. उसका कोई बेसिस होना चाहिए, यू कैन डू दैट. दैट इज हाउ, लेट्स से कि कास्ट बेस्ड, रिलीजन बेस्ड groups, it is not only related to Hindu Muslim type, but other, let's say that even Valentine's Day is nothing to do with Hindu Muslim type. Yes, it is something modernity versus tradition, let's say, conflict.
UCC भी ले सकते हैं, UCC.
Yes, Uniform Civil Code, yes. Uniform Civil Code is also, let's say, debate is communalized. This can be considered. Anyhow, so this type of, let's say that things they will talk. Next point, let's write. Next weaknesses. Lack of government support. Lack of government support to pressure groups. Pressure groups, especially those groups which do not match with ideology of ruling government. Ideology of ruling government. Next, dominance of corporate lobby. Dominance of corporate lobby among all pressure groups. Among all pressure groups. Pressure groups. Recent development of, next point is recent development of gagging pressure groups. Gagging pressure groups. Pressure groups. G-A-G-I-N-G, gagging as gagging pressure groups. Through Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Like Center for Policy Research. Center for Policy Research. 10th paragraph. The government has stake in, means way forward we are writing. The government has a stake in promotion of pressure groups. Stake. The government has a stake in promotion of pressure groups as they are important for any democratic polity. Any democratic polity and democratic discourse. Democratic discourse. Hence, the government should support them. Government should support them in terms of, within that first, providing resources and finances. Resources and finances. Next, right platforms, right platform for debate and discourse, debate and discourse. Next, acceptance of their research and reports, research and reports. Next, change paragraph. Other steps should be first, pressure groups should adopt evidence-based approach. Pressure groups should adopt evidence-based approach. Evidence-based approach in their strategy to influence government policy. To influence government policy. Government policy. They should be more collaborative, constructive. They should be more collaborative, constructive, rather than repulsive. Rather than repulsive. They should improve their capacity. They should improve their capacity, including through ICT, to increase their reach out. To increase their reach out. Next, transparency and accountability. Transparency and accountability. That they should themselves promote transparency and accountability. Next, inclusivity and representation. Next, inclusivity and representation. Inclusivity and representation. That they should be less parochial, regional. They should be less parochial, regional, and communal in outlook. More rational and democratic. More rational and democratic. Change paragraph. In a democracy, there are two types of representation. In a democracy, there are two types of representation. Two types of representation. One, through political parties. Other, through pressure groups. Other, through pressure groups. Therefore, their significance can be understood by the fact that if political parties fail to represent, pressure groups, if they have a strong presence, can fill the space, can fill the void created by political parties. That's all. We'll finish. We finished it formally. Let's give interest group comparison is left. Then questions will take how to answer it next time.